The polished crystal glasses sparkled beneath the glow of a grand chandelier in my mother's brownstone dining room in Boston. My cousin Harper raised her Prosecco flute and tapped it gently with a dessert fork. "Everyone, I have an announcement," she declared, her voice silky and brimming with pride. Her chestnut hair cascaded over her shoulders as she beamed a perfect pageant smile. "I've been shortlisted for an interview at Armitage and Pierce." A stunned quiet rippled through the table. Even my stepfather froze mid-splice of the honey-glazed ham. Armitage and Pierce? The top corporate law firm on the East Coast? Harper gave a triumphant nod. "Senior counsel position. They reached out to me directly," she said, savoring every syllable. Harper had always been the star. Debate champion, Harvard Law, trophies and accolades lined up in neat rows behind her. Her victories seemed to perfume the air, sweet yet suffocating. I kept silent, twirling my linguine with a deliberate calm. At 39, I'd perfected the art of fading into the background when necessary. But in this family, quiet only invited interrogation. "Aren't you excited for Harper, Elise?" my mother prodded, eyes shining. "Now that's a real career," she added poignantly. "Not like—" She waved a dismissive hand in my direction. "What exactly is it that you do, dear?" I looked up. "I run a venture capital firm." "Oh." Harper laughed lightly. "You mean your little online thing?" My stepfather leaned forward. "You're not getting any younger, Elise. Time to plan your future." I tightened my grip on my fork. They didn't know about the billion-dollar IPO my firm was steering, or that my name would soon appear in headlines alongside Fortune 500 CEOs. Not yet. But they would, very soon. My stepfather raised his glass again, radiating pride for Harper. I thought of our latest investment, one that had just outperformed every forecast, and had to swallow a grin. "So, when's the interview?" I asked, keeping my tone breezy. "Tuesday morning," Harper replied, a sly smirk playing at her lips. "Though honestly, it's pretty much mine. The managing partner insisted on meeting me personally." I nearly laughed. I remembered the email that started it all. Her resume had arrived in my inbox 3 weeks ago, labeled, "Another entitled candidate banking on connections. Final decision's yours, Ms. Lawson." "Well," I said, pushing back my chair. "Best of luck, Harper." "I've got an early meeting," I said, slipping my phone into my purse. Harper let out a sharp laugh. "What, another Zoom call from your apartment?" He inhaled slowly. "Elise, when are you going to let this little independence phase go?" my stepfather chimed in. "I could have gotten you a job at Armitage years ago." I pictured the brushed steel plaque on my office door. "Elise Lawson, managing partner, Lawson and Steele Capital." "You're right," I said, collecting my coat. "Maybe it is time for a change." They thought I was giving in. They had no clue. During the cab ride back to my Back Bay condo, another thing they assumed I rented, I let my mind drift backward. 13 years ago, I'd finished my MBA and started quietly plotting my own path, while Harper soaked up every spotlight. They'd dismissed my boutique firm as a vanity project, overlooked my small victories, and never noticed the struggling companies I'd turned around, or the stealth acquisitions I'd engineered. 5 years ago, I'd acquired controlling interest in Armitage and Pierce through a web of investment vehicles no one bothered to trace. Tomorrow, Harper would stroll into my conference room and call me ma'am. So busy cheering Harper's every safe, tidy milestone, my family never realized their overlooked daughter had become one of the most influential women in venture capital. As the taxi pulled into my building's underground garage, my phone buzzed, a text from Harper. "You should visit Armitage sometime. Once they hire me, I'll give you the grand tour. It's a real firm. You'd be amazed." I chuckled softly, glancing up at the glow of my firm's name atop a neighboring high-rise. The corner office she'd bragged about in her cover letter was mine. Tomorrow would be revealing. Upstairs, I brewed jasmine tea and reread her resume. Impressive on the surface. Elite schools, steady promotions, polished references. But my research revealed more. The junior associates she threw under the bus. projects she claimed as hers. The cunning masked behind charm. Harper had always been a performer. Tomorrow she'd discover I was the playwright. Another text arrived, this time from my mother. "Sweetheart, don't feel bad. Harper's just had more guidance. Let us help you find something stable." I left it unread. In my home office, framed magazine covers surrounded me. Forbes, Bloomberg, Fast Company, Elise Lawson, the silent force behind Boston's billion-dollar deals. They'd never questioned why I'd stopped using my family's surname, or how I'd quietly taken over their precious firm. My final email before bed was brief. "Please schedule Miss Harper Whitaker's interview for 9 a.m. in my office. Make her wait 30 minutes before bringing her in." A small dramatic flourish, well-deserved. Tomorrow my family would finally see who I'd become when they weren't looking. If you've ever been underestimated by the people who should have known you best, stick around and subscribe if you haven't yet, because what happens when Harper walks into my office next is something you're not going to want to miss. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows behind my desk, Boston's skyline shimmered beneath a pale spring sun. My charcoal suit fit like a second skin. My heels struck the polished marble floor in measured beats as I stepped off the elevator. "Good morning, Miss Lawson." My executive assistant Camila greeted me with a sly, knowing smile. "Your 9 o'clock arrived early." "How early?" I asked, glancing at the slim gold watch on my wrist. 8:45. "She's been in the lobby 20 minutes. Told the front desk she was personally requested by the managing partner." I placed my leather bag on the credenza and shrugged out of my trench coat. "Let her wait another 10. How's she doing?" Camila chuckled. "Demanded oat milk cappuccinos, dropped half the partners' names, and informed the reception staff that you're her confused cousin who still thinks venture capital is a side hustle." I couldn't help grinning. "Has she noticed the magazine covers yet?" "Hasn't looked up once," Camila said. "Too busy performing." Classic Harper. So consumed with projecting an image, she never noticed who was really running the show. The glass lobby walls were lined with press features, all of them about me, my story, my rise. "Oh, and she's been waving her resume around," Camilla added, dropping a folder on my desk. I ran a deep dive, numbers exaggerated, job titles puffed up, and that legal award she brags about, it was your team's. I nodded, not the least bit surprised. "Like that 8th grade debate trophy? The one I wrote her speech for while she was practicing her pageant wave?" Camilla burst out laughing. "Exactly." "Send her up at 9 sharp, I said. "And Camilla, have security save the lobby feed. I'd like a copy for my files." Right at 9, my desk phone buzzed. "Miss Harper Whitaker is here for her interview." "Send her in." The door swung open. Harper marched in confidently, until she saw me behind the managing partner's desk. Color drained from her face. "Elise," she choked. What are you doing here?" I turned my nameplate toward her with deliberate calm. "Good morning, Harper. Please sit. We have plenty to discuss about your application." "But I'm supposed to meet the managing partner," she stammered, voice faltering. I smiled. "You just did." "This would be me," I said evenly, folding my hands on the polished mahogany desk. "Elise Lawson." Harper slumped into the chair opposite me, her flawless exterior cracking at the seams. This can't be real. You're just some consultant. You work from your little apartment." "Actually," I said, leaning back, savoring every word, "I own this building, and 3 others in downtown Boston." I slid her resume across the desk. "And Armitage and Pierce? I've owned the majority stake for the last 5 years. Now, let's discuss your application." Harper blinked rapidly, struggling for air. You can't be the managing partner. You're nobody." I didn't flinch. "That's what all of you thought, isn't it? Poor Elise. The invisible one. The backup plan. The girl with a side hustle." I watched as she twisted her hands in her lap. "Tell me, Harper, did you ever once ask what kind of consulting I did? Which companies I worked with? Or were you too busy reciting your own average achievements at every holiday dinner?" She lowered her gaze. I didn't. I nodded slowly. None of you did. You were too busy dismissing me to realize what I was building right under your noses. I opened her file. Now, this claim here, you single-handedly doubled your department's revenue? That's true, she blurted too quickly. But her eyes flickered with panic. Interesting, I said coolly, sliding a report across the table. Because your firm's annual growth last year was 30%. And according to your colleagues, the credit belongs to the junior associates you nearly forced out. Her face flushed scarlet. You've been digging into my record? I vet every candidate for senior positions. We have exceptionally high standards here. My desk phone buzzed. Camilla's voice floated through the speaker. Miss Lawson, your mother and stepfather are in the lobby. They're demanding to see you. Of course they were. Send them up, I said, calm as glass. Looks like we're overdue for a real family meeting. Harper shifted in her seat. Elise, listen. About last night. About everything I said. Save it, I interrupted, my voice quiet but diamond hard. I'm not interested in apologies born of fear. You all mocked me for years. Now you'll sit and see exactly who your underachieving cousin really is. The office door burst open. My mother and stepfather stormed in, faces twisted in shock and disbelief. Elise, my mother gasped, her pearls trembling against the collar of her silk blouse. What is happening here? Why are you sitting behind the managing partner's desk? Good morning, I said coolly, remaining seated. I was just reviewing Harper's application. I gestured toward the folder on my desk. You're welcome to stay. We're discussing qualifications, especially honesty and performance. My stepfather's voice cut in, sharp as shattered glass. This charade has gone on long enough. You're humiliating your cousin. I rose slowly, letting silence gather like a storm in the room. No, Richard, for once you're going to listen. I pressed a small button on my desk. Behind me, the frosted glass wall flickered and dissolved into a massive digital display. Charts, headlines, acquisition records, financial growth curves glowing in bold colors. Welcome to Armitage and Pierce, I said evenly. The firm you brag about at every cocktail party. The place Harper applied to, desperate for a seat at the table. The company rebuilt and transformed by the woman you all ignored. They stared, slack-jawed as headlines rolled across the screen. Fortune, Bloomberg, Forbes, my name blazing in every one. This can't be, my mother whispered, collapsing into the nearest leather chair. All of this is yours? Every piece, I said, moving around the desk. That consulting firm you all ridiculed? It was only the beginning. While Harper was boasting about deals she barely touched, I was acquiring, restructuring, and leading entire industries. My stepfather finally croaked. Why didn't you tell us? I gave a thin smile. I did. You just never listened. Harper's voice cracked. Elise, if we'd only known. I raised an eyebrow. Exactly, if. I cut her off coldly. You care now because of what I've achieved, not who I am. This isn't pride, it's power, and now that I have it, suddenly I matter. I pressed another button. The display shifted again. Security footage flickered to life, capturing last night's dinner. Harper's voice rang out, confident and disdainful. He can't even land a real job. Stop, Harper whispered, face flushed. We get it. Do? I shot back, my voice sharp as steel. Because I've watched you stitch your career together from half-truths and borrowed credit. I've already spoken to your former partners. Your so-called mentors? I said evenly, locking eyes with Harper. I know exactly how you climbed the ladder. My mother shifted, fiddling with her silk scarf. Elias, surely there's a way to settle this. We're family, after all. I picked up Harper's resume and tapped it against my palm. Family? Like when she took credit for my debate speeches, or told her college friends I'd flunked out instead of admitting I left to build my own firm? That kind of family? I was young, Harper mumbled. We all make mistakes. Yes, we do, I replied, voice cool. And now you'll live with yours. A knock interrupted us. Camila entered, holding a thick folder. "The background check you requested, Ms. Lawson." "Thank you." I flipped it open. Falsified achievements, workplace bullying complaints, marketing initiatives plagiarized from juniors. Harper went pale. "Those were never proven," she blurted. "Because your stepfather paid to bury them," I said sharply. "But I don't bury misconduct. Armitage and Pierce runs on integrity." My stepfather stepped forward, voice turning businesslike. "Elise, let's discuss this privately. No need for drama." "You lost that privilege," I shot back. "When you let her mock me? When you told me to get a real job? When nothing I did was ever enough." I pressed a button on my console. The office door opened. Harold Bennett, my general counsel, walked in. "Harold," I said calmly, "please explain the consequences of submitting false information on an executive application." Harold adjusted his glasses. "Falsifying credentials is grounds for immediate disqualification and potentially legal action." Silence settled over the room. "Especially," Harold continued, "if former employers pursue defamation or intellectual property theft." Harper's voice broke. "You wouldn't. You can't." "Can't what?" I asked quietly. "Protect this firm? Enforce standards for every candidate? Or are you asking for a pass? Because you're family?" "Elise, please," my mother whispered. "Think of the damage this could do to our family's reputation." I tilted my head. "You mean like the damage you all did to mine, with years of dismissive looks and smug comments?" I shook my head slowly. "Harper's application is rejected, effective immediately," I said firmly. "And I'll forward our findings to her current firm. They deserve to know who's representing them." Harper crumpled, her tears genuine this time, the sound of consequences finally arriving. I turned to my mother and stepfather. "You should reflect on how you treated your daughters. One you praised despite deception, the other you ignored despite success." My stepfather's jaw tightened. "You're enjoying this, humiliating your own family?" "No," I said. "I'm doing what you never did, holding people accountable." I moved to the window, gazing out at Boston's skyline. The worst part? If any of you had paid attention, you'd have known. My name has been in the business press for years. You just never looked. I turned back. "Now, I have a board meeting. Harold will see you out. Harper, expect official notice, in writing." "Elise," my mother pleaded, voice trembling. "We're still family." "We're related," I replied, "but family requires respect, and I've had none." As they left, Camila slipped in with coffee. "You okay?" she asked gently. I opened my drawer, glancing at an old family photo. For the first time, I didn't feel small, not because of my mother or Richard, but because of my grandfather, the only one who believed in me without proof. "You know what, Camila?" I said, exhaling. "Yeah, I really am okay." Over the next months, everything shifted. Harper's firm investigated her past. The result? A resignation that wasn't voluntary. My mother and stepfather faded from society pages, their perfect image tarnished by truth. I kept building Armitage and Pierce, led acquisitions, mentored startups. Eventually, my story emerged, the managing partner who built an empire in silence while her own family called her a failure. 6 months later, I received a handwritten letter from Harper, an apology. She'd taken an entry-level job, her first without family favors. Months later, came a letter from my mother, humble and hesitant, wanting to know me. Not the fantasy, but the woman I'd become. I keep both letters in my desk beside my grandfather's photo, not out of sentiment, but as a reminder. Success isn't about proving others wrong. It's about proving yourself right. 1 year later, I was reviewing reports when Camila walked in with the latest issue of Forbes. The cover read, "Elise Lawson, the power of quiet success." No scandal, no betrayal, just the story of what we'd built and how we were changing the industry. Because real success doesn't shout, it endures. If you've ever been overlooked or underestimated, drop me a comment below and tell me your story. Let's support each other in rising above the labels others give us. My advice? Don't waste energy proving people wrong. Focus on proving yourself right. Quiet strength builds empires no one sees coming.